Hey, J-Bo Nation! Shaming of Jay. He's not a dopey dumb bitch. He gets laid. The court jester. The court DJ. It's time to dive into the case. To the case.
What is up, everybody? What's going on, everybody? Thanks so much for being here. How you doing, babe?
I'm good. I'm so excited about our show tonight. This is the first time we've ever had guests on Friday Night Psych. I always like to start Friday Night Psych by reminding everyone that watches that I am qualified as a licensed mental health professional. I am a master's level professional. I don't have a doctorate. I cannot prescribe you any medications. And I can't diagnose anything. So just wanted to put that out there because for transparency's sake, never want people to think that I'm claiming something I'm not.
And for folks who don't know, our guests are Chris Duett and Jody Plauche. Now, Chris reached out to me and said, hey, Jody's my friend. Would you want him to come on and we could do a show together? And I'm like, hell yeah, let's do this. You guys, Chris, he came on with me before. We had one of the best shows I think we've ever had. He's just a really cool dude. He's awesome. And he says Jody's the same way. So we're super excited to have him on. And for folks that don't know, Jody has worked in the field of violence prevention since 1995. While attending Louisiana State University, he served on the executive board for Men Against Violence, a campus organization aimed at preventing campus violence, including sexual assault and other physical violence. For 7 years, Jody worked at the Victim Services Center of Montgomery County, a comprehensive crime victim center in Norristown, Pennsylvania. At Victim Services, Jody worked as a sexual assault counselor, as well as a prevention educator, and eventually became the supervisor of community education programs. In addition, he is the author of the book, Why, Gary, Why, the Jody Plauche Story. Through his own incredible story of using his past for good by helping others, he shares how any listener who has suffered great trauma can move on and not let the past define him or her. You have the potential to overcome negativity and redefine your own story. And as far as Chris goes, I take a look at his Twitter, and I'm going with that bio because I love it. And that bio for Chris is unprofessional and rude as shit. Former contributor for Vice, former podcaster of The Criminal Perspective, which I will add is not in his bio, where he interviewed over 150 criminals, folks in prisons. He knows these minds better than most people out there. He's currently a stay-at-home dad, and by the way, he'll cut you. So without further ado, here is Chris and Jody. What's up, guys?
Hello.
Hello, doing good.
Thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Actually, before we get into this, I was thinking, Chris, you took down your podcast, but I was thinking we have a new question that if you start again, we have a question that we need to ask everyone on it. The first question, and I'm going to go to you, Jody. Are you a cookie guy? And what's your favorite?
Don't fucking do this, Jay. Don't do this.
What's your favorite, Jody? What if you got to get a cookie? What's your favorite type of cookie?
I don't know if I have a favorite cookie. I'm typically not a cookie guy. I mean, I guess regular old Chips Ahoy with some milk. I guess you dunk it and eat it. I mean, that's kind of the gold standard of cookies.
Thank you. Chocolate chip is the answer because some folks came on and for some reason came on the internet and said, my favorite cookie is oatmeal raisin. And if you give me an oatmeal raisin and I want chocolate chips, don't give me raisins. And Chris is one of these folks. Chris, defend yourself. I can't believe this.
Someone's going to put you out of your misery over this one day. This has gone way too far, Jay. And you are really, really digging into the oatmeal raisin community. And we're very passionate about our Subway oatmeal raisin cookies. Big hit with those in West Virginia and the Appalachia area. And the people with that host streams called Publicly Buzzed, and that's all good and well because they're delicious. So with all due respect, I think you and Jody and everybody else is totally wrong. And
no, hold on, wait. I'm not totally wrong. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I had I had a choice, I would get a half of each.
Oh.
So, I mean, oatmeal raisin is a fine cookie.
All right, let's end the stream. This is outrageous. I can't believe this.
It's too controversial. Way too controversial.
We've gone too far already. We just started. By the way, I'm talking about, like Chris said, we're talking about Publicly Buzzed. My boy Steve, make sure you're following Publicly Buzzed if you're not. But all right, now that we're beyond that, Jody, I kind of went through your background, but I had more. And Shannon's like, you can't tell his entire story in the bio, otherwise you're. So I'm sorry, I gave a little bit, but Jody, if you could explain to folks. Give us a little bit of your story. We'd appreciate it.
Well, a funny thing, though, is whenever I do speaking engagements, a lot of times I'll have to go up to the person who's introducing me and be like, cut this out, leave this for me. I want to say this, I want to say that. I do find it nice when people can read kind of like the end of the book where it has some of the accomplishments. But for those who are unfamiliar with my story that are paying attention or joining us tonight, when I was 10 years old, I started taking karate from a man named Jeff Doucet. Jeff Doucet, unbeknownst to my parents, was a pedophile who took an interest in liking me, and he started sexually abusing me from the time I was 10 till the time he eventually kidnapped me and took me to California. And that's when the abuse stopped, when he was arrested. So here I was, this normal kid just taking karate, start getting molested. I kept quiet like most kids do. People ask me all the time, why did you keep quiet? And my answer was, I figured if I said anything, my dad would kill him. That being said, once Jeff was arrested, the police went out to California, because that's where he took me, from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, my home, to ultimately Anaheim, California. But we went to the Los Angeles bus depot or bus station. And me and Jeff, when they were bringing Jeff back, a couple weeks after I was returned home March 1st, 1984. Jeff was being returned home Friday, March 16th, 1984. Well, that afternoon, my dad had been at a restaurant called the Cotton Club, and he would go to the little bar area in the restaurant, and it literally was a half a mile up from WBRZ Channel 2 news station where my dad had worked in college. He had worked at the news station. And so he was on the bowling team with these guys. He was friends with all of them. And my dad actually called them when I was returned, and they filmed me coming back from California on March 1st in New Orleans. And so they were doing a follow-up story. So they sent the news crew up to the airport to cover Jeff Doucet coming back in. Well, the program director was having lunch at the bar, and he called back to the station, found out what time Jeff was coming in, and then told my dad, oh, he'll be in at 9 o'clock tonight. And so my dad, having that knowledge, he actually went out to False River, which we have a camp out on the lake. It was about 45 minutes from my home, and he made it to the Quick Stop. He made it to like the little Quick Mart. He called his best friend. He was crying. He was telling him, he didn't know what he was going to do, and he got back in the car, turned around, and went to the airport. And a lot of people have seen it. It's on TikTok like nonstop these days. And my father, in front of the news camera, shot one shot with a .38 into his head and killed him. Now, it was on TV, it was live, but everybody knew what Jeff had done to me because, his lawyer put it out there. So everybody knew that he had kidnapped me and basically raped me for a year. And the community here in Baton Rouge, and I don't know many communities that wouldn't have, they sided with my dad, and eventually the district attorney let him plead to no contest to manslaughter because he was originally charged with second-degree murder. So he pled no contest to manslaughter. The judge, after he went through psychological evaluations, determined my father wasn't a threat to the community. So he sentenced him to 300 hours probation and 7 years probation. That would have been even better. Hey, you got to spend a couple days on probation. No, he did, I think, 5 years probation, 300 hours community service, and that was it. That's all the consequences he suffered.
Go ahead, babe.
Well, it's hard to even digest all of that because There's so many things that you went through just within that paragraph. So I'm going to, before we get into that a little bit more, I want to know, Chris, how you fit into the equation, how you and Jody met each other on the internet. Jay and I met each other on the internet as well. So we know that you can meet good people on the internet, but how did you know? I mean, I could tell actually from meeting Jody, maybe how you're going to answer this question, that he's like a legit and genuine person, like first thing you look at him. But, you know, how did that come to be? How did you guys become friends? You know, when did the trust develop between you?
So, I think I met Jody in 2020. I was doing my podcast, Criminal Perspective. Usually I interview murderers, but there's a handful of times where I interviewed some really, really, really amazing survivors, and Jody was one of those people. I knew about his dad killing Jeff. I didn't know the story in great detail, but I found Jody. I bought his book before I even messaged him. And Jody, I invited him on my podcast. I said, "What's off limits?" He's like, "Nothing's off limits." And brought Jody on. I read his book in one day, total page turner, and brought Jody on. Did this amazing interview with Jody, and Jody and I mean, we're very, very different people. We come from different backgrounds, but we get along really well. And I like Jody, and in a lot of ways, Jody and I are very much alike. And ever since then, Jody and I have just, we've been friends, and he's an awesome dude.
By the way, I'm putting. Oh, sorry. I'm just gonna say the book is so good, guys. I got the Audible. Shannon's reading it. I got the audio version. I'm putting the link in there. Check out this book, guys. It is really, really good. Why, Gary? Why? It's on Amazon. You can get it on Audible. You can get it, on Kindle. All the ways. Please check it out. Go ahead, Jody. Sorry.
Well, the thing for me is, I mean, if you look at the back of the book, it tells you like all the talk shows I've been on. I mean, my first one was Geraldo Rivera in 1991. I went on his show like 3 or 4 times. I've done Montel Williams twice. I did Lisa Gibbons, John Walsh's daytime talk show. I've done Oprah, and of all the people that I've interviewed with, and I told Chris this before, I was like, I was more comfortable with you than I was with Oprah. I mean, granted, maybe it had to do with, being able to just kind of say whatever I wanted to, but just his questions, the way he interviews, it just stood out to me as, that's a superior way. I mean, he was just excellent at what he did.
Well, just talking to both of you could just tell when you when I had Chris on, it's just like you can tell when there are genuine folks in this world, and just by just like talking to you guys for a few minutes, you could just feel it. So, but what I want to talk about is one thing I want to talk about is you kind of went viral before going viral was a thing, right? I mean, before there was TikTok, this is kind of on the TV, and this went crazy, and you're doing all these talk shows and stuff like that. What was that like after that happened for you?
Well, it actually, I even approached my business people because we were having trouble trying to get a documentary made. And I said, we need to approach it differently because it looks like we're celebrating, murder. I was like, granted, we all can understand why my dad did what he did. I was like, but how about we treat it like the first viral video in America? Because, I've heard, Opie and Anthony talk about it. Speaking of Jim Norton, Uncle Paul showed up in a little clip. Joe Rogan a couple of years ago mentioned the clip of my dad. So it really did go viral. And in 1992, I moved to Irving, Texas, literally across the street from the Dallas Cowboys were practicing at the time in Valley Ranch. My uncle was living there, and I went to stay with him to go to school. Well, they have what's called the Los Colinas Studios. That I think Glenn Beck eventually went over there for a while. But so in Los Colinas, which is in Irving, they had like sound stages. I mean, that's where Barney was filmed at. The I Love You, Love Me. I knew Barney. And so I went to this place called a Cowboy Sports Cafe, and there was a guy that worked at the studios. He was like some, behind the scenes guy. And whenever I got there and I met him, he just looked at me and goes, I know who you are. He goes, that night your dad shot him, he goes, we all taped it and we would pass the tape around, and like they'd mail it to somebody who didn't see it. I mean, so even in 1992, before TikTok and YouTube, this guy was like, yeah, I know who you are. I worked for NBC at the time in New York City. And when that came across, everybody shared it. So, I mean, yeah, it's crazy.
What was it like going back to like school after that? By the way, you know, listening to you, Brooke, I think one of the remarkable things is you had stopped playing certain sports, right? Because Jeff didn't want you to play certain sports. Then you go back to school after all this, and you lettered in 4 different sports, right? Is that right? I think I heard that. I mean, that's amazing. What was it like to go back to school after that all happens?
Well, the first day back, I tell this story in the book, but I'll tell it here. I walk into the gym. All right, now my karate teacher had dyed had blonde hair, and he had dyed it black. And so my mother wanted my hair back blonde. So we tried to dye the hair back to blonde, but it don't work that way. I looked like like Annie Lennox and the Sweet Dreams Are Made of These videos. So I walk into the gym. I walk into the gym before homeroom, and I see my friends all the way at the opposite of the gym sitting on the stage, because it was a basketball gym, but they had a stage as well. And so I'm walking up to them. There's like 5 or 6 of them just sitting there, and I walk up in there, all just looking at me like, and I got to them, and they're not saying anything. They're just looking at me with these big eyes. And I just said to them, I'm like, what? Y'all are looking at me like I've been kidnapped or something. And they started laughing, and I kind of broke the ice. And then I walk in the homeroom, and they have a big sign that says, "Welcome back, Jody." They had put on the wall, and everybody had signed it and wrote, you know, "Glad you're back," blah, blah, blah. And then they had another bulletin board on the left-hand side where I sat, and it had and you can look this up. They had a sign, it was current events, and they had my picture up on the current events, and they had my signature. Somebody had signed someone's notebook or something. They cut the signature out, and they put my picture and the notebook, and next to it was a article that says "Boy in Plastic Bubble Dies." Remember the show with John Travolta where he played the boy in the plastic bubble? And so I just looked at the rest of the class, and I was like, y'all didn't give me much of a chance, did y'all? You know, and then again, the class laughed. And so then after that, it was just like back to normal, except the people who didn't know me before knew me. So I was able to like get in touch with the popular girls, the pretty girls, the ones that I was too scared to talk to. Now I'm like, yeah, I'm not, yeah. This is before Daddy shot him. And then once Daddy shot him, then I took another week off of school. We went to Biloxi. But then after that, I mean, life just went back to normal. That summer, I started playing baseball again. And then I played football in 7th grade. I played basketball in 7th grade. So, and then by the time I was a senior in high school, I lettered in 4 sports. I played basketball, football, baseball, and I ran track. I was all-district MVP in football at quarterback. I was the all-district, 2-time all-district second baseman, and I played like shit in basketball. But in track, I would have been a district champion because I did the 4x100, and I was the starter, and we had the district champion at the final leg. Like he was our guy, and we dropped the baton.
Oh, damn.
No.
Not we. It was the second and third exchange. It wasn't the first and second exchange.
That's amazing. Go ahead, babe.
Well, you took me back because I ran track in high school, and I also ran the 4x1, and so I do know the pain of watching the baton drop. I just wonder what is that in you that you went back to school and made that joke first thing, you know, what freed you to be yourself and not, it's remarkable. Honestly, I don't see a lot of people that have gone through what you've gone through and choose that. And what is that in you?
I don't know. I think the most important thing is whenever Jeff started even testing my boundaries, like putting his hand in my lap. My mother had made us watch this show called Fallen Angel, and I actually just watched it not too long ago on YouTube again. And she explained to me that there were people. That movie's about child pornography, and she made us watch it. And she sat us down and told us that there were people out there like Howie, that was a guy in the story, who would do things bad to children. And so when Jeff put his hands in my lap and was testing my boundary, my immediate thought was, oh no, he's like one of those people. I still didn't have the skills to go tell my mother, hey, look, Jeff put his hands and was playing with my pee-pee. But so I knew I wasn't ignorant of certain things. So I think knowing that made me not blame myself for what had happened over the past year, because I knew he was the one that was wrong and he was the one that did something bad, not me.
Speaking of folks that do bad things, Chris, you've talked to a lot of them, right? I'm curious if you could give us maybe some insight from your perspective on like some characteristics of folks that would do these types of things.
Yeah. So I've spoken to similar type criminals. I've spoken to people who have abducted children and later dismembered them. I've spoken to sadistic serial killers who kidnapped children and tortured them sexually. Just the worst of the fucking worst. And Jeff Doucet, the man who abused Jody and kidnapped him, is among the worst of the worst. I understand that people think that, you know, this is a man who, you know, raped this 10-year-old boy and his dad shot him and that's deserving enough. It goes way, way deeper than that. Jeff is someone I consider I mean, by definition, he's a child abuser, but he's a psychopathic, pedophilic child molester. Not all pedophiles are child molesters. Pedophiles are just people with a diagnosed sexual disorder where they have an attraction to children, to prepubescent children. So Jeff had that. Jeff had the sexual disorder of pedophilia. I would say exclusive, if not majorly predominant. There's instances of him being with women, but they seem to kind of be a cover, or nothing of real interest to him. He abused many children. He admitted to this after he was arrested for taking Jody on the plane ride back. He confessed that he had abused quite a few children right before Jody's dad shot him. Jeff was a psychopath. So let's talk about psychopath real quick. So a lot of people hear this word psychopath and they think it's just kind of a generalized term, and it's, you know, this idea of a emotionless, you know, creature. And so there is a gauge to figure out if somebody is a psychopath. It's called the Hare PCLR. And if a person properly administers a Hare PCLR, they can figure this out. So the PCLR I couldn't do correctly, but it's still the best way to figure this out. But it's basically a 20-item list, and there's a score assigned. And in America, if their score hits 30, they've reached the threshold for psychopathy. Over, I believe, in the UK, if it hits 25, they've reached the threshold for psychopathy. I had Jeff at a 30 on mine. The max scale, or the max score, is a 40 on the Hare PCLR. So Jeff definitely reaches the threshold for psychopathy. He was a bad fucking dude, and he groomed not only Jody, but he groomed Jody's family. He groomed the other parents in Jody's karate class and things. He kept them very divided so he could conquer their children, a very divide and conquer tactic. Jeff was extremely, he knew what he was doing, and he knew how to do it. He was a very astute predator. But yeah, I mean, a psychopathic, pedophilic child molester is non-rehabilitatable. Jeff could not have functioned in society ever. So this is not a dude who's going to go and then go to prison and get counseling, or go to a forensic psychiatric unit and get cured. That's not going to happen with Jeff Doucet. So I mean, this was a real piece of shit who did this to Jody, and I want to, and just being brutally honest, and I just want to stress that it can go further. You can break him down even further, but I mean, just the generalized understanding of Jeff Doucet is Jeff Doucet was a fucking total piece of shit and bad dude, and just almost as bad as they come, so yeah.
Before I go, Shannon, I know you have a question. Make sure, again, get the book. Well, first, follow Chris. His Twitter's on here. He's awesome. As you can see, he breaks it down. There's the book, Why Gary Why. The link is in there. It's on Amazon, Audible, Kindle, paperback, all the ways. Make sure you're checking it out. The link is in there. It's really, really good, guys. And follow Chris. I would say to listen to his podcast, but he took it down. But follow him on Twitter because he's awesome and we love him. Go ahead, babe.
I just wanted you, Jody, to speak a little bit. We have so many parents in our group who are listening tonight, and I just would like you to speak a little bit to how Jeff did groom your entire family, so that people can be aware that your parents were his victims as well, and what we can do to watch out for those types of things as parents.
I would say the first thing that Jeff probably did was praise my parents' children. Oh, you know what? You got really good athletes. I could see them having a future in karate. They're really good at what they do. They picking it up really quick. So just bragging and kind of, mushing them up. Another thing that he did was he lowered their defense. At some point after we knew him for a couple months, he had explained to my parents that the reason why he loves kids so much and wants to be around them is because he can't have his own, because when he was like 7 years old, he was climbing a fence and he had an accident that basically, he said it gave him a vasectomy. They had to rush him to the hospital and sew him up, so he can't have kids. That's why he loves kids so much. So now he didn't put out, his thing don't work. So my parents are just not even thinking about that. And in 1984, for the people who weren't around back then, this wasn't something that was talked about. It didn't start getting talked about until my dad shot Jeff. Now they had a few shows, I think Different Strokes, they were going to, they were doing these little shows in 83 about it, but it wasn't really a heavy topic. And then once Daddy shot Jeff and it really became public, people started talking about it more. So my parents were kind of blinded by what he was, and they didn't even know what to look for. But one of the things that I like to stress is that if someone wants to spend more time with your kids than you do, that needs to be a red flag. You need to pay attention to it. And I mean, I have nieces and nephews. I've taken them all to a Saints game or LSU basketball game, but once. I never hung out with them when they were a kid. Like I said, my older brother called me up and said, "Hey, can you take Dylan?" That was his son, to his little basketball game, middle school basketball game, because we got to go here with this kid, we got to go there with that kid. And so I wasn't doing nothing that day. So I was like, "Yeah, I will." So I called my brother-in-law. I got 2 tickets to the LSU Florida basketball game, and my nephew, we went. I took him to his basketball game. Then we left there. We went and got some pizza at a place that's closed down now. It was the best pizza in Baton Rouge for years, called Fleur de Lis. Then we went to the LSU basketball game, and my nephew, he doesn't realize who he got a picture with, but I was sitting in the stadium and I saw Dale Brown was sitting next to Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. For those who don't know who Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf is, they got an excellent documentary on Showtime now, and he was literally like the first one to not stand for the American flag because he had converted from Muslim. For those who don't know Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, he was Chris Jackson at LSU, and he's one of the second best basketball player probably to ever come through LSU, with Shaq being third. And then you have Pete Maravich, and then you have Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. So my nephew, I got a picture of him with Chris Jackson and Dale Brown, and he don't even care because he doesn't know. But yeah, I never offered to, "Oh, can I take Dylan on a camping trip?" No, I never did that. If someone's doing that, yeah, red flag.
Babe, you know him, right? I saw you.
I do, because he was a Nugget, and he was my favorite Nugget growing up. And I mean, I just thought he was so, he was so, that he had these tics. He had tics, facial
Correct.
tics. He had Tourette's. And his persistence was just amazing. I mean, sometimes it would be so hard to watch him shoot a free throw, but just to watch him overcome that was really cool. So yes, I do know who he is. And Pistol Pete too.
Pistol Pete was one of my all-time. I wasn't, looking back, like Jason Williams on the Kings, and guys like that with the pass, like the no-look passes off the elbow, all that time. Pistol Pete was just amazing. All right, but I digress. Let's get back.
Well, my grandparents, my dad's mother and father, they're buried about 7 plots away from Pete Maravich.
Wow.
So if you ever come to Baton Rouge, I'll take you to go see Pete Maravich and my grandparents.
That's so cool. All right, I want to go to Chris. Can you, Jody kind of touched on it, but from, and you touched on it a little bit too, but from the people you have talked to, are there any similarities in the way that they would prey on children? Anything that you've gathered from your interviews that are similarities? And one thing I think, and you mentioned this, Jody, in the book, is a lot of times folks are like, beware of the stranger, but it's really, you got to beware of the family, the people that are really, close to the family, right?
Uncle Paul, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have your more social offenders who, hang out at the park and snatch kids off the swings and things like that. Jeff didn't do that. Jeff had a calculated path towards how to get to the abuse. Now, part of it was practical, and I believe part of it was psychological. The anticipation built in his mind, I think, kind of, the buildup leading up to the abuse, and the abuse being the climax of it. But so Jeff took his time. He eased into it. Part of it was practical, and I think part of it was he was seducing. These types are actually former FBI child offending expert Ken Lanning says this type is called a seduction type, and it's done through, he's a pedophile who is attracted to his victim type, Jody being a 10, 11-year-old boy, and Jeff taking his time and building Jody up to it. And Jeff was very daring, and that's scary because with the seduction type, it's not they're very good at getting victims. It's getting rid of them when they no longer have use for them anymore. When their victims age out, it's to get them to go away and stay quiet. Now, yes, Jody.
Explain to those who might not know what aging out is.
So aging out is when their victim type, say Jody, let's use him as an example, a prepubescent child, 10, 11 years old. So Jody might turn 13 and start to get some hair, and his voice gets a little deeper. And Jeff doesn't like that, or, these whatever offender, whatever their, victim type. So at that point, he's got to figure out how to get rid of Jody so he can move on to victimizing the next child. And the thing with Jeff is Jeff was not one of these insatiable predators that was molesting 20 boys at one time. It's kind of like he had a relationship going on. He molested several children, but like when he had his thing going on with Jody, it was him and Jody, and that was part of the grooming process, and part of keeping Jody quiet is, this is, he's trying to normalize this crime he's committing and present it as to like, oh, this is our special thing, Jody, and he's got to get Jody to go away and keep it their special thing. That's when they're, those types of offenders are vulnerable. That's when, and a psychopath like Jeff, who had taken Jody, who knows if they're in a motel room in California and Jody's like, I miss my family, I'm going to leave and I'm going to go to the cops and tell him, who knows, would Jeff have thrown him on the bed and strangled him to keep him quiet? Who knows? That's what makes these offenders so fucking dangerous.
Go ahead, babe.
Well, I was going to ask, what is the best way for a person to reach out to someone who, Jody, has been through sexual abuse like you were? What was the best thing for people to say to you afterwards, or to, what could people do to make you feel better?
Well, I know the one thing is if someone discloses abuse to you, okay, so someone says, like, I want to talk to you, and then most of the time it's going to be, you're 19 years old, and you're like, when I was younger, my stepdad did this, that, the other. The one thing that I would recommend, and this comes from my counseling background, is don't ask why questions, because why questions kind of insinuate some type of blame or that they should have done something differently. If you were like, it's like, I make fun of Dr. Phil. It's like Dr. Phil, he's like, why would you go out to a frat house and pass out drunk? What did you think was going to happen? So just stay away from why questions. Be supportive. Don't tell them, oh, well, you should have done this, you should have done that. Try to provide them with some options and let them make the decision that it works best for them.
Okay, if I can jump in and piggyback,
sure.
I don't want to speak for Jody at all. Jody can interrupt me and take over, but a big part of this and him being able to overcome his abuse, especially directly, is Jody's mom. I've met Jody's mom, June. She's lovely, but she brought Jody in because Jody never admitted to anything. Jody waited, and a hospital report came back that had, proven that Jeff had raped Jody. And then after that, Jody had admitted to his mom, and his mom's reaction was everything to Jody because she said, it's okay. She didn't act like it was the end of the world. She didn't act like this was a horrible thing. She just said, hey, it's okay. It's over now. We're going to move on from here. And it's good. And Jody has said that, like, that is the response. Like, she never acted like, oh my God, this is fucking terrible. How are you going to recover from this? It was easy for Jody to recover from it because she started him at a good place for recovery.
And she said, go play. Once we had our little talk, she was like, all right, now go outside and go join your brother, go play. And I got on my bike and I rode down my friend Crystal's house.
She let you be a kid.
I went right back to being a kid.
Babe, go ahead. I'll let you do it. The question about the college you want to.
Oh yeah. So I was really interested in your background of working on campuses because not only do we worry as parents when, should we allow our kids to go to a sleepover at somebody's house, or should we, let them go be on the travel basketball team or whatever. But then they go to college and sexual assault is rampant on college campuses. What should we look for as in like policies or things that are set up at college campuses to know that might be a better place to send your child than, somewhere else that doesn't have similar programs?
Well, I would look at how I've prepared my child to go to college. Like if I had a boy, I would explain to him, if she's drank too much, you don't want to touch her. If I had a girl, I'd be like, you make yourself become a target. People who victimize other people are looking for easy targets. And if you get drunk and passed out, then you have become an easy target. And I'm not trying to blame people who do that, but you're just making yourself an easy target. So I would try to prepare my kid for the college experience and let them know that the red zone for an 18-year-old girl, like the first semester, is like more likely to be sexually assaulted than any other time through college. I would have had many, many, many talks with my children about this topic. You don't have to go in depth. And I have in my book, like age appropriate, like what the child should know at this age to protect them. Like I know it's cute to think your kid loves Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, but if they're 14 when they find out about Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, you have not prepared them for real life. They think everything is, glitter and jingle bells versus, there are bad people out there, and you need to let them know that.
Wow, that's some great advice. I can't believe it's been like 45 minutes already. This has been so amazing and gone so well. Again, the book, Why Gary Why, put it in there. I'm going to put it in there again. Make sure there it is. Paperback, Kindle, audiobook. That's my vote. And by the way, I was telling Jody, you could say if Amazon owns Audible and the entire world, but additionally Audible. So you could just say, hey, Alexa, play the book, and it plays it. And I've been doing that. It picks up wherever you are, from your phone to your, iPad, wherever you are. Check it out. Wow. Do you guys have any kind of final, Chris, I'll go to you first. Any kind of final words of advice or anything, this has been so informative. Thank you both, by the way, but anything you want to add?
I'm going to say something that Jody would say, and that's you always tell your kids, if anybody mess with you, I'll kill them. Don't fucking tell your kids that, because it could scare your kids into silence. What if their uncle is touching them and they actually like their uncle? Jody liked his abuser. He just wanted him to stop abusing him. He didn't want him to be murdered. That's how that's how these kids think. These are children. So, if you tell a child, oh, someone touches you, so they don't want their parent to get in trouble. They don't want you to go, they might not even want the person abusing them to be harmed per se. So it might make them be quiet and not disclose the abuse. Like, you cannot frighten your children like that. So, like, don't say shit like that to your kids. Jody's dad did that, and he ended up killing his abuser. And that was probably a stressful time in Jody's life. But the thing is I know not everybody's going to act on it. But just like, don't plant that seed. Don't instill that potential of fear to grow. I think that's a really important thing. And that's from Jody. That's not from me. So
if you look at my YouTube page, back in 2008, I think it was, they had a case here in Louisiana. It was a Kennedy versus Louisiana. He had raped his stepdaughter so bad where she had needed surgery to kind of repair her. And they gave him death here in Louisiana, and he appealed it to the Supreme Court. And I was interviewed for ABC News, and I put it up on my YouTube page. And I'll bring this up, Chris, because of Florida. What Florida did is they made it where you can execute someone for raping a child. Well, the Supreme Court already ruled on that. Now, granted, the Supreme Court is different than it was 15 years ago. But what I think DeSantis did was he made it to where children are going to be quieter, because if they know that Uncle Paul is going to be murdered, they're not going to say nothing. And another thing that it does is if you have like some kind of sadistic child molester, you've increased the chances of them not leaving a witness. So I think that's a terrible law. I said it back in 2008, and I'll stand by it again. Terrible law. So that's also telling a kid that what happened to you was so bad, we have to kill somebody because, now you're scarred for life, or you're forever damaged and you're ruined goods. And that's bullshit, because I'm not. I'm fucked up in a lot of ways, but, I'm not emotionally scarred from what Jeff did to me.
By the way, what is, I'm trying to find it. Do you want me to share? What is your YouTube? What's your, your handle?
Well, when I find it, I just type in my name and it brings it to my page. Just Jody Plauche, and hit enter, and then you click on it, and then you go and look at like videos, and then you scroll down. Oh, okay. Could you play that?
Play
like
what?
Do you have it set up to where like it could, we can all see it?
Play YouTube videos?
Play your YouTube video?
Or yeah, like the little news broadcast, it's only like 2 minutes long. But I mean, do you have the ability to project?
Let me see if I could try to. I didn't set it up, but I could try to.
That'll save people from listening to going to look for it.
No, yeah. I could. I searched your name. It comes up with like interview with you. Father takes revenge.
Jody Plauche, ABC News. Jody Plauche, ABC News.
And that'll be your channel that comes up.
It should come up. The video should come up.
Oh yeah, the gunman after opening fire. That one. That one or
no? I got my tablet here. Let me look it up and see what I titled it. But
Jody has thoroughly confused everybody. Thank you, Jody.
I didn't mean to.
Again, I want to say Friday Night Psych has been a great success so far. Jay and Shannon have done a terrific job putting this together. They pre-planned questions. It's wonderful. Shannon has a background in this stuff, so I was really excited to sit here with her, especially. Jay's a beautiful human being himself, but so I just want to say that so far this has been wonderful and has gone off without a hitch, and you guys are great. Jody's got it. What is it?
It's ABC News Clip is what I titled it as. And then if you put Jody Plauche ABC News Clip, it's going to have Judy Benitez on the front cover. She was the Louisiana Foundation Against Sexual Assault.
I see it. All right, let me get it. So let me share this in here. I got it. All right, perfect. All right, so let me put this in here to everyone so they can follow you on the old YouTube. And thank you so much for saying that, Chris. And again, I mean, we started off talking about this, but like, it's just nice when you can have two guys, folks on that are just genuine, real people. And I think everyone could, read that from talking to you guys and having you guys on here. This has been so there's been so much information, so much useful information, and I'm blown away. Go ahead, babe. I feel like you have something you want to say.
No, I just feel like my mind's blown from just the way, like, listening to the things from your childhood that really helped you, like that your mom had exposed you to that video before it happened. Thinking about that, and then also thinking about how she reacted and how she, let you know that there was nothing wrong with you, and we're going to go on now and you can go play. And I just think that's such a beautiful story, and it's so important for people to hear, because our reaction to our children is everything to them. They're building their world from how we react. And so I really thank you for sharing that.
And
well,
go ahead, sorry.
No, so I will share this one quick story. All right, so earlier this week, I got informed that, like my teenage college crush, my Jenny, Chris called me Forrest Gump, before we started the show, but so my Jenny passed away this week, and so the other night I was just sitting in a room, just chilling, just thinking about it, like it's crazy, and I just posted on Facebook like, man, today's been one of the worst days of my life, not thinking that my average day, worst day to the regular person is different than, so everybody started texting my sister. I had 10 email or text messages when I woke up because I wasn't putting two and two together that my bad day is just, it just, old classmate passing away. Like it's on a whole nother level. So people were all concerned about me, but I'm fine. I posted her obituary and she had her services today, but I didn't take into consideration my average bad day.
Well, one thing and you mentioned this in the book and you kind of just said it, but like the story that's coming out is the Jody Plauche story. It's not the Jeff Doucet story where you're the, where you're the thumbnail or the footnote. It's the Jody Plauche story. And that's really important. And like it says, it's, you have the potential to overcome negativity and redefine your own story. And you've done that. And it's really powerful. And, we really appreciate you coming on here and sharing that. So I've been ending the interviews and I want to end it this way. I don't know, in Louisiana, do they have the term beau? Do they have like, hey, beau, like as a friend? Do they have that in Louisiana?
Hey, beau, no. So, baby, in New Orleans.
What is it?
Hey there, baby.
Hey there, baby. So we learned when I started doing this during the Murdaugh trial that beau is kind of like, hey, bro, like your friend. We kind of
yeah.
So like, hey, beau, how you doing? So we kind of created a thing called J-Bo Nation, which is me and all our bows. We're all friends, and like you are now. And Chris has been in it. Chris is now, he's part of J-Bo Nation, and I'm sure he's seen it. But Jody, now you are part of it, and you're gonna see some of the. Follow him on Twitter. Let him know you love him, because you're gonna see some of the most supportive people wherever you're. If you're on YouTube, you're gonna see comments from these folks, and you're now a part of our group here. And just, we really appreciate.
They're gonna love bomb you as soon as this is done, Jody. I promise you. Like these people are cult-like.
This is a good week for it.
They're lovely people, scary lovely. They scare me because they're so lovely.
They really are. So guys, show them the love on Twitter. Follow them on Twitter. Get the book, folks. Got the YouTube in there. Follow Chris as well. Let him know. We really appreciate Jody. I don't know, baby. Got anything else?
I don't.
All right. So, all right. That's it. Thanks so much, guys. And let me get the outro here. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for joining us, J-Bo Nation. Please give all of yourselves an ovation. No, it won't be real long until next time. Oh, J-Bo Nation, there's no place we'd rather be. J-Bo Nation is the place to 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 be.